back to the Mother Flutter podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Sawakis. That is my cat, Tinkerbell, meowing in the background. And today, I want to talk about self-sabotage a little bit. I posted on Substack this week about trying to fill the God-sized hole, casual stuff. And how self-sabotage always kind of creeps up right when, personally, I'm at the edge of like what feels like a breakthrough. My cat is maybe trying to sabotage me right now, but he's a cutie pie, I assure you. And hopefully his little mews aren't Tinkerbell. Hopefully he's not too troublesome here. But yeah, I want to talk about self-sabotage, how it's shown up in my life, how it's shown up in my life lately, and what kind of patterns I'm recognizing. And I'm nothing if not someone who is recognizing all the patterns. But that aside, yeah, looking at the patterns and how it's shown up in my life and like what I think the root causes of it are, because I think it is like a way, just like any kind of maladaptive behavior, it's something that we have because at one point it helped us survive. For instance, people who perhaps overeat, saying this as a former, fat kid and fat teenager. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say fat anymore, but I had a lot of excess fat on my body from eating too much and not exercising enough. That is what my case was. And I think it's very common for people who have experienced, sexual trauma and sexual abuse, to put on weight as a way to protect themselves and to kind of be invisible. And it can happen the other way too, like with anorexia and not eating. You want to protect yourself in that way and become invisible in that way. And I've taken that swing as well. Good Lord, something about podcasting, you just get right to it, don't you? But again, that's probably why you're here. And, if this can help one person or, someone can relate to it, then I've done my piece. But anyways, that's one instance of like how we do something that is, not quote unquote good for us. And that isn't really like helpful in our lives, but it's like our subconscious trying to protect us. And I think a lot of, what I've been experiencing lately is this like, it's almost like my nervous system is telling me, don't shine, don't shine. That can inspire envy. It will inspire attention. Don't succeed too much. People aren't going to like that. People want you to kind of stay where you're at so that they can be comfortable. And, making others comfortable is of utmost importance. And as I was writing this article on Substack, I, had connected it to my childhood where I, in order to stay safe, it was very important for me to make others comfortable, and not, feel emotions, don't have big emotions, don't, that was not really welcome in the house I grew up in. And I was thinking about it when I was in the woods today, and it just kind of came to me that this is, I think, way deeper than just like my family, or maybe, your family was like that too. I know it's really common. But like, if you think back, historically, it's been very dangerous at times to, have emotions, right? Like look at the early 1900s, turn of the century, when women were, put away for quote unquote hysteria. Look at the root, the etymology of the word hysteria. The Greek origin is like, I believe the hyster part is womb, right? And that goes back to the gaslighting that happens today with menstrual cycles and, oh, you're overreacting, and, or are you on your period? And, like, we treat emotions as though they are not real, but emotions are just information. It's your body sending you information, and we're taught to ignore that information and suppress it. And why are we taught to do that? Because we don't want to disrupt the status quo. We don't want to question authority. We don't want to upset authority. We don't want to, upset the people in power, the powers that be, or question the status quo. Really, that's what that's about. That's another reason that I wanted to get off meds, which I've been off. Well, I was only on them for like 2 years, and then I briefly tried antidepressants in my 20s for like 2 weeks, and I didn't like it. A bunch of my hair fell out, and I was like, nope. And then like a decade later, I got on a couple different medications, and they did help me until they didn't. And I've been off a year, and I think a big part of it was like wanting to get back in touch with my emotions. And it's not that I didn't have any emotions when I was on meds, but I did start to just feel a little bit flat and a little bit disconnected. And the reason that I started on meds was I was in a job that really required me to override my gut instincts and be a cog in a machine. And in order to cope with that, I went on meds, and it worked until it didn't. And like I said, it also helped me kind of heal some deep wounding. But going back to, like this historical, so we know from epigenetics, right, which is the study of like how our ancestors' genes affect our genes today. And we know that, fears that our ancestors had are things that we can carry on, even if we haven't had those same experiences. I know I've touched on this in another episode, but there was a study with these mice that these mice, before they got pregnant, they smelled cherry blossoms and were given an electric shock. They then went on to get pregnant, and the offspring of those mice who were shocked went on to develop a fear of cherry blossoms. It's also the case that the egg that became you, who you are today, existed in your mother when she was in her mother's womb. For instance, the egg that became me existed when my mother was a fetus in her mother/my grandmother's womb. So it makes sense when you think of it like that, and you keep tracing, that pattern backwards, and you realize that, oh my God, they were burning quote unquote witches, women, but women accused as witches only like 200, 300 years ago. That is not that many eggs in uteruses backwards. So it's no wonder that we're afraid to speak up. It's no wonder that we're afraid to shine or be different or speak our truth or feel big emotions or say weird spiritual shit. Like, it actually makes perfect sense. And I think this goes way deeper than just like the family of origin, because again, this stuff gets passed on, right? And we know from history, even the history that is, how shall I say, given the mainstream stamp of approval, let's put it that way, it's known that there were women accused as witches who were burned not that long ago. And, it was not uncommon. Again, about the Roman Colosseum and throwing people in there to get torn apart by animals. These were people who disobeyed, who spoke up, who went against the status quo. Crucifixion wasn't just Jesus. It was actually pretty common for any, outcast, essentially, or people who were willing to challenge the status quo. And so anytime, we're veering outside of just that, the status quo, and it's like you got to work a normal job and have, your normal hobbies and present this way, and you dress this way, and you look this way, and don't veer too far outside that. And, don't be too successful. Don't be too weird. Don't be too pretty. Don't be too loud. Don't be too honest. Don't be, fitting in was for safety. And I think in many ways, it still is, because we are social beings. And if you're weird, / true to yourself, I believe everybody is deeply, deeply weird. They're just hiding it under many, 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 many layers of programming. I think it can be lonely to be weird, because if you have been going along with the status quo and then you start to shed that skin, a lot of people aren't going to like it. It's like when when I learned how to set boundaries, I lost a lot of people, because a lot of people are going to prefer you without boundaries. But those people that fall away, it's actually a gift to you, because do you want people in your life who need you to be the mask, the you with the mask? Do you want the people in your life to be people who want you to be a doormat that they can walk all over? Like, when those people remove themselves from your life, it's a gift. And it can be hard to realize that, because it's, you can still love those people and there's still going to be grief. But ultimately, it is a gift, and it makes a room for people who love you as you are, and who want you to be your weird self, and who are rooting for you. And that is worth, one of those people is worth 100 of the people who need you to wear a mask for them to like you or accept you. So that's what I have to say about that. But yeah, I really think that this just goes so much deeper than like the family of origin. I think that just our whole system has been designed, all these systems of power, even from school. And I'm not saying that like everybody tells you to just be, a cog, or like there's good people that are teaching people to like, quote unquote, break out of the matrix. And I think a lot of people are shifting in that direction. And the fear that exists, the hesitation, is very real. And rightly so, but we are living in a really cool time. Like these systems do still exist, and people are still punished and gaslit for speaking out and telling the truth, and smeared. Those things still happen, but like we do live in a time when we have so much freedom, when we're probably not going to get crucified. We're probably not going to get burned at the stake, you know? It's very unlikely at this point, and we have created systems in place to protect us from those things. And really have just more options than we ever have before, and the ability to like reach more people around the freaking world than we have before. I mean, I wasn't there. I mean, maybe some version of me was, but I can't confirm. You know, maybe they had some ancient internet, but it's a cool time to be alive is what I'm saying. For all the chaos and all the outdated, dusty ass, crusty ass systems that really just need to fall away, it is still a really cool time to be alive. And we do have a lot of freedom. And I do feel very grateful to, you know, live in this country and have the opportunities that I do. And I still self-sabotage. And just as I'm getting some momentum going with my art and writing and consistency and this podcast, I will self-sabotage and find myself making excuses and not prioritizing these things, and, you know, scrolling or streaming or eating when I'm not hungry, or texting an ex, or shopping, or, you know, and I'm not saying all these things are bad. Like, we're human, right? We're going to be human, but I'm just, it's just a pattern I've noticed where when I feel like I'm at the edge of something cool, I will kind of stop myself. And I think it goes back to this fear. And I think it's a lot deeper than, you know, my family of origin. I think it's many of our families of origin. And I think it's deeper than that. I think it's our ancestors. And I think it's our ancestors' ancestors. And I think this goes way back. And, you know, just because we weren't alive doesn't mean we don't still carry those narratives and fears in our literal bones. There's this book that I loved called Healing the Witch Wound. And it talks a little bit about this with like the burning, quote unquote, burning times, and how, you know, women are often scared to like speak up or excel even. Like, I think fear of success is really, really common, not just in women, and men too. And I just think it all kind of goes back to history. And I think that if you want to understand the present, look at our past. And our past is kind of dark. And sometimes it feels like we're living in the Roman Empire, but it's just like rebranded and modernized. But there's a lot of the same structures, power structures, and systems in place. That may sound extreme, but I don't think it is. I think there are very clear patterns that are replicated from those times till today. So I think it's, it's like the nervous system is just whispering, you know, don't change, like just survive, you know, don't draw attention to yourself. And it's really frustrating, because it's not like staying the same is what you want, you know, but I've certainly been like well trained to stay small and stay invisible, and I'm not getting any younger, and life is short, and fuck that shit, you know, fuck that shit. So yeah, I'm just trying to reprogram myself. All these beliefs that I've realized are bullshit. You know, the don't speak your mind, that's dangerous, bullshit. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen if you speak your mind? Someone doesn't like you. Oh no. That wasn't somebody that's meant for you, Don't succeed too much. That's dangerous. You might make other people uncomfortable. Do you really want people in your life who are uncomfortable by your success? Are those the people you want around you? Because I don't. Frankly, I've had those people around me and they're not anymore. And thank God for that, because it did affect me. And the same with don't express yourself, don't show your emotions, it might make others uncomfortable. And there is some truth to, not emotionally dumping on people. You don't have to trauma dump on people or anything. But you should be able to authentically express yourself and not be punished for it. So I'm realizing that all these little scaredy cat voices that my nervous system is communicating to me that slows me down and causes a self-sabotage, it's all lies. It's really just all bullshit. And, it may have kept me safe as a kid. It may have kept my ancestors safe, but it's like that quote, there's a point where staying the same becomes more painful than changing. And that's what it feels like. So I'm really letting it go, and it's not oh, I'm cured. I'm not scared anymore. But it's just a constant shedding. Just a shedding of these old beliefs and this old skin, and just, shedding more skin every day. And, the fear will be there. I have this painting that I just did recently, and it just says, fear is not an option, with hearts around it. It was a quote I heard, and I love it, because it's not saying that, fear doesn't exist, but it's just saying nope, that's not an option anymore. You have 4 multiple choice options, and fear is not one of them. It exists. It exists as a concept. It exists as a feeling, but it's not an option anymore. And that gets complicated too, because I think fear, it's learning to distinguish fear, healthy fear, as in, don't engage with this person, they're dangerous, and your body is telling you this is a dangerous person, versus an unhelpful, let's say unhelpful instead of unhealthy fear that, just wants you to stay the same and just wants to stay in the familiar and not try something new, and not, expand outside of your comfort zone and grow. So just trying to choose differently and notice my self-sabotage. Trying to just pay attention and just choose differently. If I can just choose differently today by doing this podcast that feels, frankly, this feels kind of sloppy and not my best work, but I'm just trusting, and I'm not going to blab on for an hour. We're going to wrap this up here. It's going to be a shorty. And this is how I'm showing up, despite the fear of this not being good enough. This is what I've got with the time I have, with my full-time job, and with my other commitments right now. So, yeah, I think self-sabotage is really common. I do it. Maybe you do it too. Maybe you notice these patterns too. Maybe you are experiencing a lot of growth in your life, and then, you start dating someone you shouldn't, or, you start hitting up the booze, or, whatever it is. I think we're all doing it. And I think it goes back to these old ancestral wounds. But I like to think about, these people that did get crucified and did get burned and who died fighting for what they believed in and fighting for their truth. What if they were alive today and they saw me like not using the opportunity that I have, not using my voice to speak my truth? Like, what a gift it is to be able to do that and not get crucified or burned. I'm laughing, but it's true, so I don't want to waste that. I don't want to waste that opportunity. Okay, well, this was a short, slightly blabby podcast. If you want the more concise version, it's on my Substack. It's my name, Sarah with an H, Sawakis, Mother Flutter on Substack, and you can find it there. I did enroll in the video portion, a video podcasting class. So video is coming soon. It's confirmed. I'm in the class. It goes till December, so be patient. But we are going to keep going. And for those of you listening, thank you. I really appreciate you. I see that I can't see who you are, but I see that there's some listeners out there that are tuning in, and I appreciate you. Hell, even if you're hate listening, I still appreciate you. A view's a view, So, all right. That's all for tonight. I love you. Until next time. Goodbye.